Words are very powerful. They can inspire you, they can make you, break you, heal you, humiliate you. They can do several things. And today, let's dive deep into those words. Let's talk about the art of speaking. And here we have someone who has mastered all the mediums of speaking, starting from television, radio, stage, cricket commentary, and what not. We have Bhavna Balakrishnan here, and I'm so happy and proud to have you here on our studios.
Oh my God, that was a lovely introduction, and it proves that words are really powerful because you really touched my heart. And I'm like, will I be able to live up to this introduction?
Come on.
I'm always a nervous person, and now you've made me slightly edgy.
It's just us.
No, but it's a pleasure, and I have to say that I'm loving the setup of yours. It feels homey, yet it feels really professional. I mean, I don't know if I'm here for an interview or if I'm here with just us catching up over a cup of coffee and the vibe.
We are catching up for a cup of coffee. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Actually, Bhavna, I've seen you evolve. Okay. I mean, I've closely watched you evolve. I have known you as a radio jockey first. To be honest, that's when I came across this name.
Did you know that I was a radio jockey? I'm actually very surprised because a lot of people don't know that side of me. Whenever they hear me speak in English, or used to hear me speak in English, now the world knows that I speak more English than Tamil sometimes. But whenever they used to hear me speak in English, they used to be like, oh, neenga nalla pesreenga English. But I'm like, I started my career doing English radio.
Yeah. So radio, and then I saw you on television and stage, and then I went to China. So that's when IPL started. Okay, so I was not following cricket at all after that because none of the cricket was shown in China. So I just left it at that. And when I came back to Chennai for a holiday and I saw you talking cricket on television, and I was like, wow. Amidst all legends of cricket and you talking cricket with data, numbers, I was in awe. And how did this journey unfold, Bhavna? Where did you start and how did you become you?
I think I've always been me, just like how you've always been you. But this journey has been so life-changing in many ways. But it happened seamlessly. Like the most beautiful things in life happen when you least expect them. And this journey, the sports version of me, also happened to be just like that. A simple story. I was doing Super Singer, very happy in my own space, with a slight hitch. It's just that my work was in Chennai, but my life was in Bombay. Because my husband lives in Bombay and I live with him in Bombay. But I had to go back and forth between my professional and my personal life. And because a lot of my work was centered around Chennai, so were the other peripheral work I was doing. So the events and all the other ad shoots or anything that came with it was only in Tamil Nadu. Very few events happened in, say, Bangalore or Hyderabad, but largely Bombay and the northern part of the country was untouched. So I didn't know whether I could find work and also stay with my husband in the city that we were supposed to stay in, which is Bombay. So my husband always used to tell me, his name is Nikhil, he always used to say, Bhavna, you don't live in Bombay, you visit me in Bombay. So I wanted to change that. And he had an assignment in Dubai. At the same time, I thought I'll take a short break from Super Singer. And I kind of told the team I might move to Dubai for a bit. And anyway, there was already another anchor in the show. So there were 3 of us anchoring at that point in time. So it was a nice time for me to take a step back as well. We were between seasons. So I went there. He didn't enjoy his work in Dubai, so he quit. And I said, okay, I'm thankful you quit because I want to come back and work. But when I wanted to come back to work, I said, you know what? Maybe it's time I consider looking for something in Bombay. So then I was having discussions parallelly with the Super Singer team and people at Star Sports who just incidentally happened to call me. And a couple of years before they called me for something called TNPL. And I laughed and I said, Yenakku sports ko sambandhame illa vittrunga. So I said, no, I don't think I'm going to venture that side. They called me back after another couple of years and they said, give it a shot. We're doing something called Kabaddi. And we're opening a new vernacular channel for sports, which is Star Sports Tamil. And it's doing really well with Kabaddi. So you do the first season of the sport. So I said, okay, cricket, அதாவது கொஞ்சம் பார்த்துருக்கேன். Kabaddi I haven't even seen, right? My husband at that point, he was desperate. He said anything to get me to stay in Bombay. So he said, come, I'll teach you Kabaddi. I know the sport. Come, I'll prep you for the audition. So he prepped me and I went in It was successful. And somewhere, I don't know, I wondered if I was ready for another challenge. Maybe I felt very, very comfortable in that zone. I just felt like, okay, what next? Am I only going to be defined by this one show I'm going to do? Or is there another side to me? Can I be another version? So I think, Tamil solvangala gundu dheiriyam. Adi irunduchu, and I said, okay, you know what? It's a big risk, high return maybe. So let's try it. And it's been 7 years now.
Miracles happen only when you come out of your comfort zone, right?
True, very true.
Right, and many people don't venture into anything out of their comfort zone. And
But you have. Let's talk about you. I'm so excited. And the anchor in me wants to talk about you and do a podcast where I ask you questions.
We'll do it again. Role reversal.
Fabulous what you've done with your fashion journey. And parallelly, you're doing podcasts where you're educating people on various industries and forums. It's amazing. And this is fashion was outside of your comfort zone. Imagine going to China, speaking Chinese, doing a fashion course, parallelly being a mum.
Yes.
Wow.
Okay. So, how I am planning to take this show is, okay, what I want to learn from you is, because the whole idea of doing this podcast is I get to learn from the guests.
Okay. Yeah.
So I'd like to speak about every single avenue that you have taken so far.
Okay.
Let's start from RJing.
Okay.
Right? Because speaking in radio, it is altogether a different thing. It's just you and the mic, but you're actually speaking to a lot of people. Yeah. And there is no one to react to you. And the time given to speak a link is also really tiny.
30 seconds, 45 seconds.
Right. How do you craft a beautiful link within those 30, 45 seconds?
That's where we had it very different. So when Chennai Live 104.8 launched initially, it was talk radio. So the format was the same as what you have in the UK, where you have BBC radio. Conversations would flow. A link could be 5 minutes, 4 minutes, as long as you kept it interesting. As long as it was about a topic that's current, relevant, and could create or spark a difference. So when I went into radio, the concept of 45-second links didn't even occur to us. Those were 45-second introductions we used to do that went into the topic. So, but radio, as you call it, is such a beautiful medium. I still miss doing radio because it's just you, the mic, and a dark room, right? With a monitor in front of you, which you can navigate very seamlessly. You can be a version of yourself. You can have a really bad day outside, but then you can just shapeshift in your mind to somebody else and do the show. And you feel like this one-on-one exchange with a caller is so exciting. Sometimes you laugh, sometimes you cry, sometimes you learn, sometimes you give. You can dole out advice as well. Or you can dole out some comfort to them. I used to love it. And I used to do the morning show. So it was 7 to 11. The world was asleep. I don't know why. Chennai people wake up early. But whenever I would go into my radio station, I would be like the second person who would punch in. There was one technician and me till about 7:38, where about a couple of other people come in. Only 9:30 the office would get filled up. I used to love it because it was just me. And I realized that even though I thought I was a people person, I kind of liked that solitude. But how we used to craft our radio shows, because you're talking about how to be a successful radio jock, is it was a really challenging task for us to search for topics, because there was no concept of sensationalism at that point in time. This was not going to be just entertaining. Talk radio, when we started it, we wanted to be educative. And we wanted to be current. And that combination is hard. Because if you wanted to be a little more educative, you need to know the subject to ask the relevant questions to the right experts. So my show had one segment for about an hour where we would bring in 5 experts. And just to actually gather and line up those experts is really hard.
Every day 5 experts?
Every day. You've been a radio producer. My producer used to go crazy. So I used to help her out as well. We earned every rupee that we were paid. And we realized soon that maybe Chennai was not very receptive to that sort of talk radio format. So then our links kept, getting shorter.
Shrinking.
Yeah. So it went from 4.5 minutes to 3 minutes, 3 minutes to 2 minutes, 2 minutes to 1.5 minutes. And that was really difficult to adapt to. Very difficult. So then you think of an opening, then you think of an end, and then you hope and pray that the middle does not lengthen it. That's what I usually do.
Amazing. Be it television or radio, doing an interview is an art by itself.
Yes.
Because most of the time, the person that you're interviewing, that might be the first time you're meeting that person.
Yeah.
But you'll have to speak and bring out the best out of them, which is an art actually. It's more about the interpersonal skills that you have.
It's also about the vibe. I really believe in energies. It's also about the vibe, I think. And you should hope and pray that you catch them in a good mood. Because even if you do all the prep, if they come bearing a lot of baggage from somewhere else, it's going to be a really hard task for you.
That's true. That's true. But how do you make them comfortable, and how do you can't really butter them up a lot also, because it will get very obvious that you are doing it for them to speak up. But, it's quite a task. How do you do that?
I think you summarized it really well. I think need to know where to draw the line. You can be warm, but you can't get over friendly because you really don't know them. I think a smile always helps. And the usual, oh my God, you look so good, you look so handsome, is, I think, a little dated. Now, even if they're genuinely looking very beautiful or really handsome, you can just say, I love that shirt, or you can notice like a little detail about them if you want to, or just let it be, or say, I'm really happy we met today, I'm looking forward to doing this. And I think it's always good to ask, would you like some? So if I'm inviting them to my space, then I would always ask, would you like something to eat? Did you get anything to eat? You're good. What would you like? Are you happy with the lighting? Is the seat comfortable? Can we make you comfortable? So they know that my interest is to not just drill them with questions, but I'm genuinely interested in making them comfortable. So I would ask. Now, I've largely worked for a lot of these television channels. So when I used to do radio, I used to do all of this because we have a little more freedom there. But television channels, there are anyway 10 people surrounding them. So there's a lot of stress and you can feel that energy. They feel it too. So I largely keep the small talk minimum. But I always discuss a flow with them. So they're not caught off guard. Though I'll say, I might ask you a few surprising questions, but I will never make you feel uncomfortable. Stop me if I am.
Nice.
So I let them know that.
Nice. It's quite a contrast to what is happening these days.
I don't know if we were taught that is the best way forward. Which is why even today when I see some headlines, I'm shocked.
5-7 years ago, it was not like this.
Yeah, good content was never clickbait content, no?
Yeah. Now today, it's all about drama.
It's all about the views.
Yeah.
It's all about the moolah.
And about television hosting, right? When you're hosting shows like Super Singer. I've heard people telling me when I was on television, like, what? You go there and then you say, next, this guy is going to come. He is going to come. And then you say, hey, all of you clap, clap, clap. Yeah. This is going to happen next. That's it. No, what kind of a job is this? But it's not an easy job, right? You think it's only about announcements that you make?
Let's start with the amount of hours we spend on that set, which is, I'm sure you've done it too, anywhere from 12 to 17 hours.
Easily.
From the time you go to the time you leave. Who works that long? So we'll start from there. Even if I'm saying only those 5 lines, I'm still spending, say even a minimum of 10 hours. Say it's a really good shoot day, so we finish in 10, start to finish. 16 hours is a normal thing.
Yeah, standard.
Right? Standard for entertainment television. Anybody telling you no, it doesn't happen is lying. So tell me, if you are going to do that on 7 out of 10 occasions, and even if you're saying only 5 things, isn't that a very challenging thing to do? With hair, with makeup, with the sari in place, and doing it in front of people or technicians and cameramen and lights. Now we have 3 lights. We'll have 50 there with the dust, with people moving around. Even if I'm saying those 5 lines. So that's the first insight. The second is, I can talk 5 sentences that I've practiced 500 times. Do it with somebody else talking parallelly in your ear. That's something we all do.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying it to pat ourselves back on our shoulders. But every job has its difficulty. But making a job look easy I think is a talent and we do it. So we should take a little bit of credit for it.
Very well said. And again, about hosting television shows. As you said, if it's a show inside a set, 18 hours, 20 hours, and there are people around, and it's a comfortable set with AC and everything. But hosting something on a cricket stadium, Bhavna, I am so proud of you, really.
Thank you.
How do you do that? I mean, I'm sure when it first came to you, it must have been intimidating.
Oh, yeah.
Standing in the middle of legends and then having all the numbers in your mind. It's all about data, no?
Oh my God.
Especially cricket.
It was crazy. So I don't think I've talked about my first stint in English on any show. So I'll tell you, it's a Kutty story. We all love Kutty stories. So I was doing the World Cup in 2019 and this was my first ever World Cup. So I was learning a lot. They came to me one day and they said, it looks like you might be doing English and your guests will be Scott Styris, Anil Kumble, Brian Lara, Sanjay Manjrekar. So you should understand the stalwarts that you're going to be with. And when they said this, I had a panic attack inside of me. I said, okay. They said, but you don't have to do much because most of this is going to be done by the anchor in the ground. And she was a veteran. And she is a veteran rather. They said, but we have such good guests here. So we don't want to make them just be commentators or we want a little bit more from them. So you speak from here. We'll have a few questions. You can go through it and then she'll take over. I said, perfect. So I go 3 hours earlier and I said, you know what, let me just do my hair and makeup and then go through the rundown of everything and sort it out. So I'll be perfectly prepped. Obviously, I haven't slept the previous night. Obviously, I have over-prepped. Obviously, I've had a couple of meltdowns saying, oh my God, can I do this? Can I do this? And a lot of encouragement from family and husband.
Of course.
So I go there. I'm doing my makeup. All my curls are, up. And then there's a fire alarm in my studio.
Wow.
Makeup studio. And we're all looking around. And then somebody runs in and says, this is not a drill. All of you walk down.
Oh.
So we all went down and there was a scare and we were waiting down for 1.5 hours. And every minute of that hour, for the first time in my life, I didn't think about safety. I'm like, I'm losing time because we're on a clock, right? It's a live show. So my producer was down and I said, where is the run order? And he's like, it's upstairs, dude. They just asked all of us to come down.
Oh my God.
And I'm still half done. My makeup is half done. I have those rollers in my hair. And I'm like, God, what is this? What are you doing to me? And I'm telling myself, don't worry about it. A lot of people face these challenges, but they shine. They come through brilliantly. And that's what it is. It's a story for you to tell somebody. I went in and I had a little bit of time. So all my prep time was gone. So walked in, finished my hair and makeup quickly, went into the studio, did the pre-show. It was okay. And right as we were about to step out after our segment, the other anchor on ground took over. It started raining there.
Oh my God.
And then they came back to us because then studio has to take over when they don't have a studio. We did that show for 2.5 hours, with me standing there, literally praying to God that I don't say anything wrong because I have not prepped for 2.5 hours. I prepped for 20 minutes.
Wow.
And I don't know more cricket. So this guy in my ear, my producer, was my savior. And he is asking me he's just like saying, say this question, say that question. And the experts were very helpful because he knew it was my first day, my first gig, and I was put under pressure. After 2.5 hours, I really thought I was going to faint. They cut to something else because it was still raining on ground. I walked out and Yuvraj Singh has announced his retirement.
Wow.
So then the head comes in and says, we have to do a special show on Yuvraj Singh. So I'm like, what? And there is no other English presenter. And then in half an hour, that was the time the producer was also given to prep everything, all the material for the show. So he had not a second for me because he had to do his work. Yeah. So he expected me to do my work. And at that point in time, I didn't even know how to research. Oh, and you can't go ask legends, tell me something about Yuvraj Singh. They'll look at me like I'm crazy. So the internet helped. But then I couldn't take numbers because I didn't know which ones were right, which ones were wrong. I didn't know which apps to use. Oh my God. And then I went in and I did that show oh my God, if I see that show today, I think I will cringe.
Really?
I think I will cry. I didn't say anything bad or I didn't goof up particularly, but I was below average. subpar in my performance because that was the day I had. So after that day, I was like, you know what? Bring it on, dude.
Come on.
The worst is over. I cannot have a day and I've not had a day like this again. But that was my first ever stint in English. Everything that could go wrong went wrong. But then I lived. And then my head at that point in time came and told me, in live television, if no one's died, you're fine.
Good one.
I said, no, you literally almost had me at the edge. You may have had a catastrophe, but we survived. So,
Wow.
yeah. Wasn't that a crazy story?
Madness, seriously. But you know what? The first day itself, Universe showed you everything.
Yeah. So, and I think it was almost like, can you handle it?
Yeah.
If you can handle it, then move forward.
Yeah.
And after that, every big match is very, very scary. Like when it's an India-Pakistan game, it's the World Cup game. There's a lot riding on it. And more so when you do one opening link, and we always have our phones next to us because numbers and stats, it's very, very good to have those. I always make notes on my phone. So when I'm taking my phone out, I will actually see 50 messages.
Wow.
With a lot of screenshots of me because the whole country watches English presenting, and especially if it's like an India-Pakistan game. Yeah. So when you see 50 messages, Seriyama, if you open one, you're screwed. Because then you're like, oh my God, are you watching this? Are you watching this? And then you get a little more paranoid, right? So initially it used to happen, now it doesn't. But it's a big responsibility.
Yeah, and it's a big risk also because, everyone is good at stats, especially when it comes to cricket. Yeah. Like we follow it so sincerely, like everyone knows the numbers and they all speak from nostalgia. And do you know in 1976 match what? I was not even born, dude.
and people say, but you need to know.
Yeah.
You're a cricket broadcaster.
Yes. And now how is your...
My knowledge is, I would say I can definitely have a conversation. I will still say that I'm a student of the game. I still am. I think I always will be. But I'm very happy to learn. But I understand the game. So you can't look at me and say, you're a girl, you haven't played the sport, you've just come into broadcast. I can take you lightly. I think I've worked hard enough to let other people know that they shouldn't take me lightly. They can teach me if they want. And I'm happy to learn.
That's really nice to know, and I'm very proud of you again.
Thank you.
Let's talk about stage emceeing. So many things can go wrong, right?
And they have.
You cannot have retakes.
Yeah.
There are no time for all those think words that people use, right? Actually, and all these. No, you just have to be straight and then tell what you are supposed to convey and then move out of the dais and then leave the stage for others and things like that.
Yeah.
And there is someone talking in your ears also.
Yeah.
What are all the things that have gone wrong?
Lots have gone wrong, including the recent show that I hosted. I think with stage, presence of mind is everything. A little bit of honesty always works, and a sense of humor is your strongest support in times of crisis. So in that sense, I feel like Vijay TV has at least infused a little bit of that in me, where I understand what the audience wants when it comes to Tamil shows. When it's hosting English corporate events, you need to be witty. The slapstick sense of humor doesn't work. You need to have like a slightly more witty sense of humor, which they enjoy. So it's different audiences, and I like that challenge because different languages as well. Corporate emceeing I really enjoy because the pulse of the crowd is something that you can immediately assess. And corporate emceeing also has a structure. So you essentially have a script. So if you prep well, your language is good, you dress well, you look good, and you have a couple of icebreakers. Icebreakers are when you interact with the audiences, right? So over a period of time, you'll understand what icebreaker works for which audience. So you have those that are successful, tried and tested, and a couple that you want to experiment with. A corporate event is largely successful. When it comes to audio launches, press meets, fan events, you have a lot of stars in one place. Everything can go wrong. And everything has gone wrong, right? You're in here, people are talking too much. People are stressing the people who are talking to you. So then that stress sort of seeps into them. And then your producer screaming at you. But you can't scream into the mic. So that happens. Sometimes the actor is talking and you're receiving your next cue saying, okay, you know what? After he goes, this guy's come because there's a change. then this presenter is also changed. But the actor throws something back at you, and then you're still doing. So at that point in time, and it happened to me recently as well, and the actor was like, what? And I said, wait, I'm listening here. I've cut you off for 15 seconds. And the audience laughs because now the audience knows. I've gotten very good at parallel listening because of cricket. But in stage events, parallel listening is so hard for me because already the speakers are very inefficient. Your stage monitors are not as good as they need to be for you. So you're only listening to 30% of what they're saying, combined with somebody screaming at you here.
And then audience also screaming, right? They're also screaming.
It's really
Oh
hard.
my God, chaos.
But also I think it should be a little bit of, okay, you know what? It's done. Let's move on. I think that attitude helps.
Talking about knowing languages, Bhavna, I really like the way you pronounce, be it a new name, a complex new name from other country, whether it is in Tamil or it is in English or in Hindi, everything, you are spot on in telling those words in the right way, right? How do you switch languages? Because we all have a thinking language, no? But then the language that you're supposed to communicate is different for different stages.
Correct.
So how do you switch?
It's a great question, and it's something that I think I'll work on till I die, because it's hard. It comes so naturally to a few people that I've seen, and I'm so envious of them. I'm like, how are you doing this? It's not that natural to me. I've learned the art, and I'm learning the art as well. I want to record this bit about you saying I have great pronunciation skills and play it to my husband. He's a proper pronunciation and a grammar Nazi. He corrects me every little opportunity he gets. So it's a good thing.
Yeah.
Because he's your husband, you'll get irritated at him. But irritated with him. See, he will say it. Irritated with him. But you also learn in the process. So internally, I'm okay. But yes, pronunciation, I feel, is a very big part of how you sound. Just like the ups and downs of how you speak, right? The intonation. Pronunciation is such a big part. Like you can add a lot of like oomph and class, to how you say a person's name. You can make them feel a little more important if you say it just about right. So I put a little bit of thought and effort into it. If a name is a little tricky to me, especially cricket names, because you're speaking about cricketers from various countries. So when you do the World Cup, and if I don't know the pronunciation, I ask. There's no shame in asking. I Google and I practice. And if I say it wrong, I correct myself. I say, I'm sorry, let me say that again. I correct myself because everybody is human.
And while we are talking about pronunciation, I saw you presenting the inauguration event of International Chess Tournament that happened in Chennai, and it was amazing.
Thank you.
That was one moment where again I felt like, wow, this girl. How is she doing it so well again and again? The way you presented all the names, like, it had people from everywhere, right?
Yeah.
All the names, and so you were sounding so professional, so crisp, so neat. All the things that go into your ears, you cannot see it in your voice or tone at all. Kudos to you.
Thank you. That one I won't take any credit for. In fact, a lot of things could have gone wrong that day, but God was with me, by my side, or within me. I don't know what it was. It was all Him. Because if I had to pick in the hundreds of thousands of events that we've all done, if I had to pick one perfect event, it's that event. I literally did not make a mistake. I did not put one syllable out of place. That doesn't happen very often. Even in a podcast like this, we fumble, we make mistakes, we search for words. It didn't happen that day. And that's what I came and told my mom. I said it was a perfect event. And I think it was one of those things that God said, you know what? You worked hard. I'll wait for a stage and then maybe I'll do you one favor. So I'm very grateful for that event.
So amazing. Let's talk about fashion now.
Ooh, nice.
How do you decide on your look for all these different appearances that you make? Radio, forget it. No need to look anyway. You can be
You
yourself.
don't even want to know how I looked. So bad. My mother used to yell at me every day I left for work. It was hard to leave for work at 5:45.
It's not easy. Yeah. And about television interviews, and then there is stage event, and then there is a stadium event. You cannot go everywhere in the same manner.
Yeah.
So how do you decide on your styling for every occasion?
Great question, actually, again. When I was doing Super Singer, I was forced to wear a lot of saris because, forced in the sense that, I thought this will look really good for the show. So I was forced. I was 25, I didn't want to wear those saris. So I just felt like I had to do it. But then after 2 months of wearing those saris and seeing how they looked on the show and seeing a lot of great response coming in, I decided that we made the right decision. A lot of the saris were complemented with these jhumkas, these statement jhumkas that my mother would buy for me. It was her idea completely. And it worked. So my thing when I was doing Super Singer was, she'll do 75% of her wardrobe will be saris and 25% will be Indian wear largely. But with those 75% of like saris that she does, she will wear very different kinds of jhumkas. Intriguing, interesting, picked from, different places. So that was a statement. When I moved to sport, I wanted to stay healthy and fit, which I don't think I was when I was doing Super Singer. I didn't care much. I said, okay, you know what? People like chubby girls and I'm anyway wearing a sari, so I can hide
It covers everything.
all the extra curves, right? And inches. But I didn't want to do that when I was doing sport. For myself, I felt like I wanted to be a little more confident because I was going to the national stage. I wanted to look the bit as well. And I think it's the best decision I ever made in my life because I turned to fitness and I can't do without it today. Today, I feel like if you want to be fashionable, you should feel comfortable and you should feel like your best features are enhanced. It is important to hide the ones that you don't want the people to see, but more importantly, if your best features are enhanced, you won't look at your negative side of things. You won't look at the ones, the other parts of your body that you are not in love with as much.
Put it that way.
Yeah. I'm just trying to find the right
I
words
know.
because words have power.
Yes.
Like you mentioned. So that's what I did. I always try and find clothes that highlight the best part of me, I feel. That I think is the best part of me. And I immediately feel confident.
Also, stadium wear has to be functional, no?
Yeah, absolutely.
You will have to run sometimes.
Yeah.
You will have to sit down on the ground
Yes.
and then get up quickly, right? So it cannot be a very high heels with a slit on the side, a skirt with a big slit on the side, and that cannot be the case, right?
In most cases, no, it cannot. But sometimes what happens is when the situation demands it or you feel like your stylist feels it, because you collaborate with the stylist, 9 out of 10 times you can say no. But 1 out of those 10 times they'll say, you know what, you look so good in it, why don't you wear it? And then against your better judgment, you will wear it. And then you'll suffer a little bit. See, this industry is also vain. And sometimes if we think we look really good, we'll say, you know what, it's fine, I'll adjust.
Yeah.
I'll wear it.
Yeah.
At least I'll look great on television.
And it's a visual medium, so
So, I mean, I'm also a little bit vain like that sometimes. But largely, since cricket presenting is also about a lot of what you need to like think and plan and execute it to the second and do it right, I would not want my clothing to be the focus when I'm working. So, and I've also gotten older, so I'm not under pressure of what they think I should be wearing. I wear what I want to wear. It will be fashionable, and again, it'll highlight my best feature according to me, and I'll be happy. The high-heeled shoe, however, thankfully, they don't allow us to wear pencil heels on ground.
oh,
So there is a rule that you cannot, because it damages the outfield. So there is a rule that you can only wear blocked heels or wedges, which is way more comfortable than stilettos. So I thank the BCCI and the ICC for bringing in a rule like this. And it's really beneficial to women. But I still want to see a day where sports broadcast has women wearing keds, pants, like jeans,
yeah,
and a t-shirt. I still want, I think a day will come.
It'll come very soon.
I don't know if I'll be comfortable doing that 7 days of the week, but at least 2.
Once in a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
And what about styling yourself for a glamorous award event, or that is all about glamour, glitz, and
Yeah.
all sequins.
I actually love it now.
Yeah.
I never used to like it as much when I only had to do that. But now I'm like, you know what? I'm only wearing straight dresses and bandaged clothes and just simple pantsuits. I'm like, give me the sparkle. Bring it on. Is this all? Let's have a trail.
Oh, nice.
Because it's few and far apart. Again, that's also functional, because we do audio launches, press meets. Press meets are at least largely 1 or 2 hours. But you know how award functions are, audio launches are. They are minimum 4-hour events where you're standing all 4 hours. You're not even sitting. And even if you get a chair to sit during a performance, it's what, 2 minutes? So the whole amount of time that you get to sit in those 4 or 7 hours is a total of 15 minutes max if you're very lucky. So your footwear, but we all wear slightly, at least a little bit of heels to complement our outfits. I try and do sleeves sometimes because it's cold. So I don't want to freeze on the podium. So sometimes I try and do sleeves that makes me feel a little warmer. And with age, I've realized that showing skin is not the only thing that will make you glamorous. Sometimes the right cuts and the right fits can showcase your best. What I'm saying is the mindset where you believe that, you know what, if I have a thigh-high slit, is when that dress is glamorous.
Yeah.
I still remember, even my last event, I had a thigh-high slit for that outfit. And then my mom said, and we took a picture. I showed it to my mom. I show her most of my outfits. And sometimes she approves, sometimes she disapproves completely. But I still do what I want. She just said, do you need that slit? And I said, but it's a gown. It's like it's beautiful. And she said, but it's a beautiful fish cut. Why do you want it? And I know I'm getting technical here. So I thought about it and I said, yeah, you know what? This dress will do even without that slit. And we closed the slit and it looked just as good and just as glamorous. But yes, you're right in that sense where I feel like today I'm not apologetic for wearing what I want.
Yeah.
I wear what I want if I feel confident and good in it.
So do you have a prep ritual? What do you do the previous day before a big event or show coming up?
These days I like to get some sleep. There are no pre-parties or plans that I make. I'm very old and boring like that. Late 30s and closer to your 40s, you realize that you look your best and your brain is your sharpest when you've had 8 hours of sleep. So that's one thing I do. I try and drink a lot of water the previous day so that my skin looks a little hydrated the next day. I have skin that can get dry like this. So the previous night I try and do like a vitamin C infused glass of water, bottle of water. Then that helps. And I try and talk less the whole day if I'm doing a show in the evening because I'd like to save my voice.
Yeah.
And I work out a little bit, or a 15 minutes workout because the endorphin rush is something that also elevates energy.
And some prayers?
Oh.
Is there a ritual for that?
Regular. So I can't start, even before I started this podcast, I didn't do it in a way that you notice, but a silent prayer is always said.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And when you are a media professional, right, you'll be handling a lot of celebrities, people, personalities who are coming with different moods, egos, and tantrums.
I love how you said tantrums.
How do you?
You must have seen a lot, no?
How do you manage all those things?
I think you shouldn't take them personally because I think they're not aimed at you. So a lot of us have a problem because we feel we've been wronged. You have to, I think, alienate yourself. This is this person's life, their problem, their process, they're going through it. What I don't like sometimes is when I see them being unnecessarily mean to people around them, especially the people who carry lesser power or lesser value, then I immediately form a judgment. I don't judge easily, but if you treat somebody in the service industry badly, it really gets my goat. It bothers me and I look at you as a very small individual then. How much ever you've achieved. But apart from that, I distance myself. And if I think I've been a little fortunate where I've not had anybody being too rude to me. Maybe some male co-anchors who make those jokes here and there.
Pulling your legs and,
Yeah, that happens. Maybe it would have gone a little overboard at times. But I've largely had nice people. Stars and tantrums. I think I've been lucky. I've seen it around. But when we've sat down, I don't think it's happened.
Being on media, obviously the attention that you get and the fame that you get and all the words of encouragement, appreciation that you get can get on your head. And how do you stay grounded, Bhavna?
You know, I think upbringing has a lot to do with it. When I came into this industry, it was never going to be the thing that I was meant to do or going to do. It was only an experiment that's turned out to be a full career, which I'm very grateful for. So I never looked at reaching a point where I become a star. I always looked at reaching milestones in my career where there were a lot of achievements. I still believe that I chase achievements more than I chase fame or money or just like value. For me, it's achievements. Oh, I've achieved this, I've done this, I've done this. So for me, that's like a tick mark. In that sense, I think I'm very hungry. But because I've never looked at fame as something that is the ultimate goal or success, I've never felt like I'm a star or I'm a celebrity. I know I'm a public personality, but I work with stars, yeah. I work with the real celebrities and the real legends. And I feel like I'm a public personality. That's just maybe a mediator between the masses and the real heroes, heroines, sheroes, whatever you call them. So I don't think I'm a star or a celeb. And I'm not saying it to sound humble because I'm not humble. I'm not very humble about a lot of other things. I've never felt that. And my friends and family certainly don't make me feel like that. You did the show really well. It won't be, you saw those 50 people that came and got an autograph from you and took pictures from you. Oh my God, everyone recognized you. And look at the treatment that you're getting here. So I think it's so important to surround yourself with people who say the right things to you. Like, I like this link that you did. Or, you know, it's really nice that you got to host this show. And I liked this bit of interview piece that you did.
It's more about excellence.
Yeah.
Rather than all these fame and autographs and
Correct.
pictures that people take with you.
Which is, I think, equally important, if not more.
Yeah. I'm so glad that you came here today in the studio and we had this conversation.
Me too.
And I'm so proud of you. I'm telling you again and again because I really like the work that you do. I want you to go greater heights and then achieve bigger things. And I will be clapping at you.
No. We should be clapping together.
Together, we'll do that.
Yeah, let's. Anyway, you're taking fashion global.
Let's high five then. Clapping
Yes.
means this is
Yes.
also clapping.
Yes. It takes two hands to clap. And I honestly want to wish you all the very best.
Thank you,
I
Bhavna.
think the industry sometimes doesn't sense a lot of talent when they're around, but somewhere when that talent is within you, it'll find an avenue to ensure that you shine. And I think you're one of those diamonds waiting to be unearthed. I honestly do think that, because I feel like you've done so much. Honestly, you've written scripts. Your knowledge of Tamil is unbelievable. You read a lot. You're educated. You're worldly wise. Now you've made a headway into the fashion world. There's a lot that you do, and I hope that at least a few more people through this podcast will get to know about you and they start following your work.
I'll be more happy if few more people get to know about me and the artisans that I work with.
Yes.
That's the whole purpose of...
No, I'll root for you, you root for them.
Yes. Yes, let's do that. Thank you so much for being here.
I know I enjoyed this podcast very much because I know there are interviews that I've done where people have said, why is she talking so much in English? Isn't she a Tamil girl? Just stick to your roots. But guys, I think in English. Mm-hmm. So when I do these rare podcasts where I speak in a language I'm very comfortable with, it's also a lot of fun.
Yeah, somebody asked me last week, why are you doing your podcast in English? Because, I've lived in different countries. Yeah. So I have followers from all over the world.
Yeah.
And the whole point is to, introduce my friends and the people I admire from the field of art, design, fashion, and entertainment to the rest of the world,
That's so sweet.
right? Because they have to know them.
Yeah.
And English is the connecting language.
Absolutely. I mean, it's universally spoken by most people in the world.
yeah.
And we love our language. Tamil is our mother tongue. And we take a lot of pride in it. But, you know, there is a time and situation that demands us to speak in another language. Why not?
Why not? Thank you, Bhavna. Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much.
Vinu. This was a lot of fun, and good luck to you in everything that you endeavor.
Thank you so much.
to do.
Thank you. See ya.